All right, so we're going to review for the quiz, but before we review for the quiz, I got one thing that I didn't hit at the end of section 3.4 when we talked about the slopes. I want to do that now because you'll have one question. It's the very last question on the quiz that'll be like this, okay? And I'm going to show you pretty much the same style of problem, same exact style of problem, right? The numbers may be different, but the problem will be pretty much the same. So let's talk about slopes quickly. So what was the letter we used for slope? M, all right? So the slope is y, what? 2 minus y1, x2 minus x1, all right? So that's something you need to memorize. You're also going to need to know the formula for the distance and for the midpoint as well. But I'm just going to talk about slopes for the next couple minutes. If I had a line, let's grab this graph so I can be a little more precise with this graph. You don't have to graph anything on this quiz, so don't worry about that. But I'm going to show you something. Come on. Come on, move. So I'll just use the arrows. All right. There we go. That's good enough. All right. So what if I did this? What if I said, let's do this in a different color. What if I had a point that goes, I'll tell you what, let's not do that. Let's do this point right here. What if I had a point right here, and I'm just picking a random point? And let's pick a point up here. Everybody's watching, right? And what if I connected those 2 points, and I asked you to find the slope of those 2 points? Everybody look up here. Everybody look up here. All right, if I asked you to find the slope of that line. Now, on the quiz, I am not going to give you a graph. Let's try this again. I am not going to give you a graph, okay, but I will give you 2 ordered pairs and ask you to find the slope, okay? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you something just a little bit newer. Let's find this point right there, all right? What would that point be? Well, you start here and you do what? You go over 1, right? So it's 1, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's 1, 6. So that's this point up here, agreed? And then what was the other point I put? Right here? See that point? What point is that? Negative 1, 2, 3, negative 2. So it doesn't matter. Negative 3, negative 2. So I got 2 points. Now, I should be able to find the slope between those 2 points. So this is what I would give you on the quiz. I'm not going to give you a graph. Don't worry about that. Okay, but I'm getting somewhere with the graph, all right? So just hang on for a sec. But what I will do on the quiz, I'll give you 2 points, and you got to find the slope. I give you a couple questions, I think 2 questions, where I give you 2 points, and you got to find the slope. So let's do it. Let's find the slope. All right, so we subtract the y's from each other. So it doesn't matter. Let's go y2 minus y1. So it's going to be 6 minus negative 2. And then the x's, I'm going to subtract the x's from each other. You got to subtract them in the same order, though. If I go to the second minus the first one, I got to go to the second minus the first x. So it's going to be 1 minus negative 3. All right, let's do that. What's that? 6 minus negative 2 is 8 over 1 minus negative 3 is 4. Always reduce it. If you have a fraction, what's that reduced to? 2, all right? Or just 2 over 1. You can just write 2, perfectly fine. All right, or 2 over 1 doesn't make any difference. All right, so that's easy. You'll have 2 questions on the quiz that you're going to have to do this. Yeah, it wouldn't make any difference. These would both come out negative, but you're going to have a negative over a negative, which is a positive anyway. So let's do that. Let's subtract the y's in the different order, just for fun. You don't have to do this, but we're doing this just to show you that it doesn't matter what order you subtract the x's and y's in. as long as you subtract them in the same order, though, okay? You have to subtract them in the same order. All right, so let's subtract the y's in a different order.
With the following student, please come to the office. Terrell Pryor, Sakai Young, and Tyler Hendricks. Thank you.
So watch, instead of 6 minus negative 2, what are we going to do? Let's go the other way. Let's go what? Negative 2 minus, no, the y's. No, the y's. 6, right. Negative 2 and 6 are your y's. So it's negative 2 minus 6. Let's subtract the x's from each other. Negative 3 what? Minus 1. Look what you get. This time you get negative 8. This time you get negative 4. But what's a negative over a positive? I'm sorry. I was thinking of the answer. What's a negative over a negative? It's a positive 2, right? You could write just 2. That's fine. Or you could write 2 over 1. You understand? It doesn't matter what order you do them. Now look, if I went 6 minus negative 2, but then I went negative 3 minus 1, I'm subtracting in different order, right? And you're going to get a negative instead of a positive, and that would be wrong, right? So make sure you subtract them. You could go y2 minus y1, or you could go what? y1 minus y2. But then if you go y1 minus y2, what do you have to do down here? x1 minus x2, all right? So it doesn't matter which order you do them, as long as you do them in the same order, subtract them in the same order. All right, what I'm getting at is this. The slope of this red one is 2. All right, watch this. What if I did this? What if I went what if I just, I don't know, let's just pick a point right here, 0, 0. Make it really easy, okay? The slope of this is 2 over 1, correct? What I'm going to do is I want you to see what's going to happen if I flip the two numbers, the 2 and the 1, and then I change the sign of it. What would that be? If I flip the two numbers, what would I get? 1 over 2, 1/2. And if I change the sign of it, what would I get? Negative 1/2, okay? Now, I want to show you what that does. That does something to this line right here, okay, this red line. So let's just start right here. Let's do the slope of negative 1/2. So I rise negative 1, so I go down 1, and I run 2. Everybody see that? Or I could go up 1 and to the left 2. And if I connect them, what do those two lines look like they are to each other? Parallel? Oh, you know what I should have done? I'll tell you what. Let's hang on to that for a second, okay? I'll just leave those dots there. I'm sorry. I meant to do this. Somebody said parallel, and it got me thinking. What if I started at that 0, 0, and I did the same exact slope, 2 over 1? So I rise 2, run 1. Everybody see that? Rise 2, run 1. Rise 2, run 1. Now, what does it look like is true about these two red ones? Yeah, they definitely look parallel to each other. Agreed? Okay. And what's true about the slopes of both of those? They're the same, all right? I started at a different place, all right? Like right here. Well, anyway, I just went up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Same thing here. If I started here, I go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, and so forth, okay? They have the same slope. So lines that have the same slope, tell you what, I'm going to write it like this. I'm going to say M1 equals M2. What does that mean? It means the slope of the first line is equal to what? The slope of the second line. Do you see that? So that's what the M1 equals M2. What do we know about the two lines? If the two slopes are equal to each other, what do we know about those two lines? They are what? You said it earlier. They're parallel. Okay? So, any two lines, if they have the same slope, then what do I know? I don't even have to graph them. What do I know about those lines if they have the same slope? They're parallel. They're not equal. They're parallel to each other. The lines are parallel to each other. Everybody with me on that? All right, now let's get back to this one. What if I drew, on this one, what did I do? I flipped the fraction, and then I changed the sign. Do you hear me? I did two things. I flipped the fraction, made it 1 over 2, then I changed the sign. The sign was positive, I changed it to what? Negative. Now, if I do that, and I make a line out of it with a slope of negative 1/2, what does it look like is true about that yellow one compared to either one of those red ones? Do they look parallel? Does the yellow one look parallel to the red one? No. What does it look like it forms? Okay, it intersects it, but all kinds of lines intersect it. Look, that line intersects it, doesn't it? But the first line right here, it's really specific. Look at the angle that it makes. It's a right angle, isn't it? Okay, so it makes a right angle. Anytime you have a slope of a line, and if you flip it and then change the sign of it, then that line is going to be what to the first one? Okay, it's a right angle, but what's a word that we can use? Two lines that make a... Starts with a P. Look, two lines that make a right angle. Say it. Perpendicular. That's right. We've used that word before, haven't we? Yeah. Okay. So watch. Everybody look up here. See these markers? Okay, these are parallel to each other, so they have the same what? Look up on the screen. What do they have the same? The slope. They have the same slope. All right, let's try this again, like you were listening the first time, okay? So here we go. Ready? If two lines are parallel to each other, they have the same slope. Thank you. They have the same slope. Everybody got it? What happens when two lines are perpendicular to each other? What's true about the slopes there? What do we have to do to the slopes? We do what? What do we do to the slopes? We don't make a right angle. That doesn't answer my question. What do we do to the slopes? What did we do to that 2 over 1 to get negative 1 over 2? We flipped it and we switched the sign. We changed the sign, okay? We flipped the fraction, okay, and we changed the sign. Let me give you a word that we use in math to do that. We call it the negative, or sometimes they'll say opposite, reciprocal. What does reciprocal mean? You've heard that word from your math days, haven't you? It means, what do you do? Like, if I had 2/3, what's the reciprocal of 2/3? Well, just the regular reciprocal. It's 3 over 2, okay? It's 3 over 2, all right? But look what we did to the 2 over 1. We took 2 over 1, and what did we do? We flipped it. We took the what? Reciprocal of it, right? And then we took the opposite sign. Negative, it just means the opposite sign. So what's like negative 5? It's positive 5. What did that first negative do? It changed the sign of the other one. You with me on that? So watch. Negative 5. What is this negative? It basically means the what? The opposite. What's the opposite of negative 5? It's what? It's positive 5. So the negative reciprocal means we do what to this number? We flip it, right? The reciprocal, and then we take the opposite sign, or the negative of it. So what is the negative of a positive? It's negative. So when I have two lines that are perpendicular, the slopes are negative reciprocals of each other. That's the phrase that I would use in geometry, all right? Or even in algebra. I would say that they are negative reciprocals of each other. Let's do a couple tests. Let's do that 2/3 again. What if I had positive 2/3? What's the negative reciprocal? They're not equal to each other, okay? So this is not an equal sign. I just put an arrow for negative reciprocal. What's the negative reciprocal of 2/3? Negative 3 over 2. Good. Everybody with me on that? Okay, let's do a couple more of those, just so you get in the swing of things. Now, what's true about two lines that have that same slope? Those lines would be what to each other? They're not equal. The lines can't be equal to each other. So don't say equal. I've heard that like a dozen times today. They're not equal to each other. They're perpendicular to each other, okay? Two lines that have the slopes that are negative reciprocals of each other are perpendicular. What if the lines have equal slopes? What are they? They're parallel to each other, all right? So if I had the slope of one line being, I don't know, 3/4, and I had the slope of another line being 3/4, what could you tell me about those two lines? Those two lines are what? They're parallel. Everybody see that? All right, what if I have another two lines, different two lines? Let's do different colors since they're different lines. All right, so what if I have a line that has a slope of -5/7, and I have a slope of another line that is 7/5? What could I say about those two lines without even drawing them, without even graphing them? What could I say about them? They're perpendicular. That's right. How do I know that they're perpendicular? Because what did I do with that? I flipped it. I took the negative reciprocal. Good. I flipped it and I changed the sign. Correct? See, they're different signs and they're flipped. That means they're negative reciprocals. So they must be perpendicular. Okay? What if, let's do another. Okay, what if I did this? Oops. There we go. What if I had the slope of a line of, I don't know, 2/3, okay? And the slope of my other line was -2/3. What could I say about those two lines? Somebody tell me why they're not perpendicular. Come on. Because they're not what? Well, they are opposites of each other. This is positive, that's negative. But they're not what? They're not reciprocals of each other. They're not reciprocals. This is 2/3, that's 2/3. Did I flip the fraction? I did not flip the fraction. Now look, one is positive, one is negative. So that gives me maybe an indication that they could be perpendicular. Okay? But what else do I have to do? I got to flip the fraction. I got to take the reciprocal. So are they parallel to each other? I don't think you guys are even trying to pay attention to me. You wait until I have to repeat myself all the time. Here's the question. Are they parallel to each other? Why not? Because one's positive and one's negative. They're not exactly the same, are they? Okay, are they perpendicular to each other? No, they're not. Why not? One's positive, one's negative, but they're not reciprocals of each other. So, what would I say? I would say they're what? They're neither. Okay? They're neither. They're not, there's no relationship between them. All right? One's positive, one's negative, but they're the same number, right? The same fraction, 2/3 and 2/3, but they're not parallel because they're not exactly the same slope. They're not perpendicular because they're not negative, what? Reciprocals. They're not reciprocals. So on this, I would say neither. So here's a kind of question that they're going to ask you. Well, not they, me. I'm going to ask you on the quiz. So this will be something like number 10. All right? I might use different numbers. But let's say we have point A. You writing this down? Good. Not everybody is. I'm going to give you 4 points. There's point, oops, wrong way. There's point A, there's point B, here's point C. It's 1, -4. And then here's point D, and that is -2, -3. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to say I want you to find if line AB, all right, line AB, because these are 2 points. I could connect those 2 points, make a line out of it, correct? Is line AB, is it parallel? Come on. Okay. Parallel, that's terrible. That says parallel. Perpendicular, I'll just shorten perpendicular. or neither? I'll tell you what, here's what I'll do. And CD. All right, so I'm looking at these two lines. Okay, I'm looking at these two lines. I want you to be able to tell me, are they perpendicular to each other? Are they parallel to each other? Or neither one? How would you do that? How would you tell if those two lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Would you just guess and hope you got lucky? You got a 1 in 3 chance. Those aren't very good chances, are they? Very good odds. It's only a 33% chance that you'll get it right by guessing. So how do you do it? How do I know if they're going to be parallel, perpendicular, or neither? I find the what? I'm not going to find the reciprocal yet because I don't know the what. What am I trying to find? Thank you. I'm trying to find the slopes of these two lines. Let's do AB. So let's find the slope of AB. So here's line AB. How do I find the slope of line AB? Well, I subtract the y's, subtract the x's. All right? Donnell, I hope you're paying attention to this because this is going to be on the quiz. So AB. So what do? How do I find the slope between A and B? Just subtract the y's, put them on top, subtract the x's, put them on the bottom. Let's do it like this way. Let's go 4 minus 2. Is that all right? 4 minus 2. See, there's AB. There's the 4. There's the 2. That's my y. That's my other y. Let's do the x's. I got to subtract in the same order, don't I? Negative 3, what? Minus 3. Let's figure that out. 4 minus 2 is 2 over negative 6. Reduce it. Negative 1/3. Now, I can't tell right now if it's parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Why not? Because I haven't found the slope of what? CD yet. I just found AB. Okay, now I got to find CD. I got to find the slope of line CD. So, let's find the slope of line CD. So I come over here. There's point C, there's point D. I do the same exact thing. Find the slope. Let's just go the first one minus the second one. So it's going to be negative 4 minus what? No, it's not minus 3. It's minus negative 3. Let's do the x's. It's going to be 1 minus what? Negative 2. All right, let's do the math. Negative and a negative is a positive. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. 1 minus negative 2, that's going to go to positive. What's 1 plus 2? 3. Now what we're going to do is now we can determine, are these lines parallel? Are they perpendicular? Or are they neither? So here's the slope of one line. Here's the slope of the other line. Let's compare them. What are they? They're parallel because the slopes are the same. Slopes are exactly the same. Negative 1/3, negative 1/3. So what are those two lines? They are parallel. Did I have to graph it to see if they were parallel? Nope, I didn't have to graph it. So this is your answer right there. Okay, I didn't have to graph it. All I had to do is find their slopes, and I could tell if they were parallel, perpendicular, or neither. And that's what you need to do. I need to see this. You cannot just guess. I mean, you could guess, but you're not going to get it right. Even if you guess correctly. If you guess correctly, and all you do is write down parallel, and you don't show me why they're parallel, you're not going to get it right. Everybody hear me? Why? Because I'm not going to accept just a guess. All right? I need to know that you know how to do it. All right? I'm not going to accept just a guess. So I need to see that the slopes are the same. Okay? Now, you might have gotten a problem. Maybe it's on the quiz. I don't know. Maybe you had a problem where one slope was negative 2/3 and the other slope was positive 3/2. What would you say if you had that? They're perpendicular, okay, because they're negative reciprocals of each other. This one's negative, that one's positive, so they got different signs. This is 2/3, this is 3/2. We flipped it, didn't we? All right, so what would these be? Perpendicular, okay? Again, one more time, this is the last time we're going to do this. What if I had the slope of one being, I don't know, 3, and the slope of another line was -3. What do we know about those two lines? This would be neither, right? Because, yes. Okay, so this would be neither. That's why I'm trying to get you to pay attention now. I don't understand why you don't pay attention when I first go over it. So anyway, that's going to be number 10. See number 10 right there? That's going to be number 10 on the quiz. The numbers could be different, but you're going to answer the same kind of question. All right. Now, the rest of the review should be very simple, so I'm going to go through it right now. Numbers 1, 2, and 3, I ask you to write down the formula for the following. Just hang on. Let's finish this up. All right, so let's take a look. I ask you for the formulas. Formula. Okay? So I'm going to ask you for the distance formula. I'm going to ask you, what do you think the second one is? Nope. The midpoint formula. And now, what's the third one I'm going to ask you for? The slope. All right, so let's write them in there so you remember. Distance. So put D equals square root. You should have this memorized. I told you when I first went over it, you have to memorize these. Okay? This is how you started off. What do you put in here? x1 minus x2, and then y1 minus y2. You could go x1 minus x2 or x2 minus x1. Doesn't make any difference. Okay? There it is. That's your answer for number 1. I just gave it to you. Hand-delivered it to you. All right? You have to know how to write it down. All right? So, midpoint. What's the midpoint formula? Well, I put it over 2 first. All right? Put it over 2. Now, what do we do with the x's? x1, it's not minus, not for midpoint. Midpoint, it's plus. x1 plus x2, and what's the second one? Yeah, it really doesn't matter. Does it matter what order you... Oops, that's 2. Does it matter what order you add them? No, it doesn't make any difference. So you could have said x2 plus x1. It does not make any difference at all. And that's your midpoint formula. So that's number 2 on the quiz. I'm giving it to you. It's like I'm handing you the answer sheet, okay, for the quiz, at least for the first 3 anyway. All right, we've done this a bunch already today, so you should know this one. The slope, we're going to go y2 minus y1. We're going to go x2 minus x1. Or, if you wanted to, you could say what? y1 minus y2. But if you do that, what do you got to do on the bottom? x1 minus x2. The y has to go on top. Why does the y have to go on top? Because it's rise over run. Y is the rise, okay? The y-axis goes up and down. That's the rise, okay? The x-axis goes across. That's the what? That's the run. That's why the y is on the top and the x is on the bottom. So that's your first 3 problems right there, okay? And then I'm not even going to do any of these because I don't think we have enough time anyway. But watch. Numbers 4 and 5. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 2 ordered pairs, and you're going to have to find the what? Now, what do you think the first one is? What's the first one that we covered? It's the distance, right? Why would I put the midpoint one first? All right, so you got to find the distance. So what do I give you? I give you 2 ordered pairs, right? And you got to put it into the formula and find the distance. Okay, so there's 2 of them, numbers 4 and 5. What do you think numbers 6 and 7 are? Find the midpoint. That's right. And I give you 2 points again. All right, I give you 2 points. All right, I'll put numbers in there and you find the midpoint. Stick it into the midpoint formula. We already went over that. And then the last 2 is 8 and 9. And then what do you think I'm going to ask for on 8 and 9? Find the slope. Again, what am I going to give you? 2 points. I give you 2 points, okay, and you have to find the slope. We did a bunch of that already today. So make sure you go over it. Make sure that you know the formula for distance and you know how to use it. Make sure you know the formula for midpoint and make sure you know how to use it. Okay? Let's just put some we got a couple minutes. Actually, we got to go over that worksheet, and you're going to turn that into me, that slope worksheet. So I'm going to collect that from you, and then that'll be it. Yeah, you can use a calculator if you want, a calculator. Probably don't need one. I don't think anything on here. Yes. Yeah, but you don't have to, like if you came out with like the square root of 36, you should be able to figure that out without a calculator. What's that? That's 6. I know, I'm getting there. What if you had the square root of 17? Just leave it like that, okay? It won't simplify, all right? What if you had the square root of, I don't know, 45? You can just leave it like that. You can just leave it like this, okay? I'm perfectly fine because that doesn't come out to a nice whole number. Only make it a nice whole number if it comes out that way, right? So if you came out with like the square root of 9, what's the square root of 9? 3. Square root of 16 is what? 4. What's the square root of 25? 5, okay? So on stuff like that, yeah, you should write your answer as a nice whole number. If it comes out like this, just keep it under a square root. So you do not, I'm still talking. No, it wasn't. It was you. So stop. Stop being a fool, okay? That's what you're doing. You're just playing the fool. Everything's got to be a joke. So look, if it comes out to a square root, just leave it under the square root. It's perfectly fine. You don't really need a calculator for this stuff. All right, you might have to square a few things, but they're easy numbers to square. What's 3 squared? That's 9. What's, 7 squared? What's that? It's 49, okay? All the stuff that you should have on this quiz, you should be able to do in your head, and you don't really need a calculator. If you have one, you can use it. But I don't let anybody borrow mine. I'm not going to let you borrow from each other, okay? If you're going to use a calculator, you're going to bring in your own calculator, and you're going to use your own calculator. Everybody understand that? Okay. All right, we got a few minutes left. Let's go over the answers to that slope worksheet, and I'll collect it, and that'll be it. So no homework tonight, just study for the quiz.